I am United States General Dwight D. Eisenhower. During Operation Torch, I served as Supreme Commander of the North African Campaign and Operations. My mission was very clear: take control of French-controlled North Africa. My job was to oversee the entire operation. I was attempting to command the largest amphibious landing in order to take pressure off of our British allies in Egypt and to take control of North Africa away from the Axis powers. On November 8, 1942, my forces landed at three beaches: Oran, Algiers, and Casablanca. We were forced to fight French forces loyal to the Vichy France, and we were assisted by resistance French forces that hate that their country is controlled by the Nazi regime. By May 1943, we successfully took North Africa and forced German troops in Tunisia to slow their advance into Egypt and defend their western flank. We successfully stopped the advance of German General Erwin Rommel and his German Panzer Tank Division. This victory is an important step in defeating Germany because we have cut them off from obtaining oil, and we now have a launching point for an invasion of southern Europe.
I am Bernard Montgomery, and I am a British general, appointed in 1942 as commander of the British 8th Army in North Africa while under the leadership of Prime Minister Winston Churchill. My role in Operation Torch was to build up the British forces for a renewed offensive against Rommel, the German general of Afrika Korps who had pushed back my army to Egypt. This was a major worry for us because we could not let the Germans get a hold of the Suez Canal, a very important waterway for transportation for materials for the Allies. But with my determination and my soldiers' bravery, we were able to push back the Germans at El Alamein, Egypt, in November of 1942. My troops and I then pushed the Germans across North Africa, finally getting them to surrender in Tunisia. Sadly, I lost a great deal of men in these battles, but they did it in the name of laying down their lives for their country, one of the most honorable things a man can do. And because of these courageous men, we were able to seize the offensive, and freed French were able to reinforce the Allied cause.
My name is George Marshall, and I was the Army Chief of Staff under President Roosevelt during the 1940s. In 1942, Roosevelt ordered me and overrode his military advisors to take the North African landings and have them occur in the fall of 1942. And so he even begged me just because he wanted to have them happen before his election season in November. And so now this was a pretty big deal because it was our first ever joint invasion with Britain, and we had to decide where we wanted to attack Germany from, and so we decided we wanted to go through France. And so once we decided on the logistics, I set the start date to happen on September 30th. And this was a very ambitious timeline because I didn't want my men going into battle ill-prepared or unequipped, and it only gave us 2 months for both the British and American militaries to prepare. And so unfortunately, the Torch operation that I led was delayed until November 8th, 5 days after the presidential elections. And the operation was already so very risky and tactful, but it was necessary, so that is why it was delayed. And I led this cross-channel invasion by up to a year, which gave us the necessary combat experience. It secured the routes of transit to the Mediterranean and provided a launch pad for our later Sicilian invasion. And looking back on it more now, I think I led the group to our victory through coordination, our cooperation, and the logistical resolve that was very rare for that time.
I, Marshal Pétain, a leader of the Vichy France, was well involved in this conflict between the Germans and the Allies. During the time period of 1940, I decided to communicate with the Germans rather than fight. Our country was far from being on its own and free. Franklin D. Roosevelt sent out a radio broadcast that changed the way we fought the war. Roosevelt made clear to me that the Axis powers had scraped France of our savings, industry, and transport, as well as took money from the nation's farms and factories, all to aid Nazis and fascist Italy. All these things Roosevelt spoke about in this radio message were false, and I denied all of them, writing back, It is with stupor and sadness that I learned tonight the aggression of American troops towards North Africa. Over the next few months, I led Vichy France in many battles against the Americans, but unfortunately, after a long, hard fight and Americans allying with Free French, America ended up getting a hold of North Africa.
Hello, my name is George S. Patton, and I am a general in the United States Army. I am leading an invasion into northern Africa called Operation Torch, specifically into Casablanca. I am commanding both American and British forces in an effort to support the British forces fighting in Egypt against the Vichy French, which will in turn open a third front. We are still supporting the existing fronts. However, our goal is to distract Germany by entering Europe through the soft underbelly of Italy. Germany will be forced to send troops down to Italy and Africa to stop our progress. This will pull troops away from the Western Front, allowing the Allied progress in the West. This plan was developed by the Big Two, President Roosevelt and Prime Minister Churchill during the Arcadia Conference. They decided that in order to defeat the Axis powers, it was necessary to defeat Germany first. I understand the logic behind the operation. However, I believe that we are acting out of desperation. We want to invade through other landing points in northern Africa in the future to ensure successful invasion of Italy. Our landing in November 1942 to take Casablanca has been a naval battle against minimal Vichy French ships. We have been successful and have met little resistance thanks to the surprise factor. Unfortunately, our French allies were unable to aid in our advance because they too were surprised that we were landing. Now that we are on the beaches, we are meeting strong resistance. However, thanks to an armistice in Algiers and a potential peace agreement, success is in sight.